Welcome to the So That's Why podcast, where we unpack the science behind everyday questions. I'm Jen.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Matt.
So today we're talking about something most of us experience but rarely discuss in depth: brain fog. You know that feeling when you're staring at your screen, rereading the same sentence for the fifth time and your brain just isn't cooperating?
Oh, you mean like, when your mind feels like it's wrapped in cling film, which is, most of the time, isn't it? When you walk into a room, I started doing this more and more. I thought this was an age thing where you just forget the reason why you went into the room.
Exactly. And here's what's fascinating. Brain fog isn't actually a medical diagnosis. It's an umbrella term for a whole collection of cognitive symptoms that signal something's not quite right with how your brain is functioning.
It is, and the reason it's so important to talk about is it's incredibly common. And so studies have shown that over a quarter of us report experiencing brain fog at different times.
Which is good news, right? Good news. It means I'm not alone in my brain, when my brain occasionally decides to go on strike.
Not at all. And the symptoms are pretty consistent: difficulty concentrating, forgetfulness, sluggish thinking, and mental fatigue. It's not dementia, more like your brain temporarily switching gears to conserve energy.
And what we want to explore today is why your brain's immune cells can get stuck in this kind of always on mode, and why hormonal changes can fundamentally alter how your brain operates.
So brain fog then isn't just about being tired or stressed.
Definitely not. There's real biological mechanisms at play. First off, your brain is a huge energy consumer. It's about 3% of your body weight, but it uses 20 to 25% of your body's energy.
And when you put it like that, then, geez, it's no wonder my brain struggles when it's under pressure if it's using all of that energy.
Absolutely. And one major factor here is so-called neuroinflammation. That's when your brain's immune cells get activated. Now, normally, this is a protective thing, but if it persists, it can slow down your cognitive function.
So what keeps these immune cells activated then?
So there's lots of things like infections, chronic stress, poor sleep, toxin exposure. The problem occurs when these immune cells, they're called microglia, stay activated long after the initial threat has gone. So they keep releasing inflammatory molecules called cytokines, which then disrupt your normal brain signaling.
And it's a really interesting thing. So it's something that researchers have studied closely during COVID, and particularly what we know as long COVID. So studies have shown that studies using brain imaging found that patients with post-COVID brain fog show widespread microglia activation. So their brain's immune cells are basically still in this emergency mode months after the infection it was trying to get rid of was already cleared.
Which sounds pretty exhausting for the brain, right?
It is. And the degree of inflammation directly correlates with symptom severity. So the more inflamed the brain tissue, the worse the cognitive symptoms. And those cytokines we mentioned before, they impair memory, attention, and mental clarity.
And this is also linked with what we call the blood-brain barrier. So this is the membrane that controls what enters your brain from your bloodstream, but importantly, what doesn't as well.
So this membrane then is like a security gate, if I can put it in simple terms, which I need, protecting my brain from random stuff just sort of floating around in my blood.
Exactly that. It keeps harmful substances out while allowing essential nutrients through.
And this connection comes because a study in 2024 found that in long COVID patients with brain fog, this blood-brain barrier becomes compromised. So it's basically leaky. That security gate's a little bit open, as it were.
And the impact of a leaky blood-brain barrier, an open security gate, is pretty frightening. It's frightening. The inflammatory molecules and cells that should never get into the brain tissue start getting in, and then that triggers more inflammation and disrupts the normal processes in the brain.
Well, okay, putting this back in simple man's terms for me. So like you say, the security gate isn't just a jar, it's actually letting things through, some suspicious characters, if you like, that should not actually be getting in.
Yeah, that's actually not far off. And the barrier disruption, it was evident in these long COVID patients with brain fog, but not in those without cognitive symptoms. So the leakiness was most notable in the temporal lobes and the frontal cortex regions, which are crucial for memory and attention.
And another important factor with the brain here is cerebral blood flow. So your brain needs a constant delivery of oxygen and glucose through its blood. But that supply is reduced or disruptive, even temporarily, that will affect cognitive performance, which would drop almost immediately.
So it's a bit then like a power cut affecting my computer.
Yeah, similar concept. So some long COVID patients with brain fog show measurably reduced cerebral blood flow. And this can have an added impact to people suffering conditions like postural tachycardia syndrome, where brain fog worsens when you stand upright.
And moving around with the biology, the mitochondria also come into play here. Now, you might remember these from your secondary school biology, or you might not.
Yeah,
Yep.
I don't.
I do.
The mitochondria, for Matt's benefit, they are basically let's call them little tiny power stations that are inside every cell in your body. But with your brain's huge energy consumption, any impairment to these kind of little cellular batteries massively affects cognitive performance.
So what causes, and thank you for simplifying for me, what causes these power stations then to malfunction?
So multiple factors can do that. Things like aging, chronic stress, stress caused by pollutants in the environment, nutritional deficiencies, lack of physical activity or exercise.
It's always in there, isn't it?
It is always in there. And when the mitochondria aren't functioning properly, all the cellular and neural signaling, it becomes less efficient. It doesn't work as well.
Yeah, the worst thing is it's a massive vicious cycle. So inflammation damages the blood-brain barrier. Blood-brain barrier
That's
damage.
not easy to say.
No, it's a tongue twister.
The BBB damage allows more inflammatory molecules in. Inflammation impairs mitochondrial function, and this is affecting the body's overall ability to function efficiently. And round and round and round it goes.
Yeah, I like that. So what actually triggers these changes in the first place then? And what would you guys say is the most important factor?
Sleep. It all comes down to sleep. Sleep has got to be one of the most crucial factor. And we know that from research that just after one night without sleep, your reaction time slows by 50%, your working memory drops by 40%, and your ability to form new memories decreases by nearly 40% as well.
Yeah, totally. So during sleep, your brain goes into this kind of maintenance mode. But during that phase, it's flushing out waste. But that includes proteins that can contribute to diseases like even including Alzheimer's.
So pulling an all-nighter to finish a project essentially cancels the brain's rubbish collection. And actually, this reminds me of what we talked about when we talked about sleep, right, in a previous episode, how the brain takes out the trash while you sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And the effects persist. So studies show brain function doesn't normally return until about 72 hours after sleep deprivation. And sleep loss disrupts communication between your cells and your neurons in your brain.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing is chronic stress, because it's a big player in brain fog. And this is mostly because of cortisol, which is your body's main stress hormone. So when cortisol stays high for too long, it can affect the hippocampus part of the brain, which is essential for memory.
Yeah, and it makes sense that stress can harm the brain, but how does it do that exactly?
So the hippocampus has got lots of cortisol receptors, which make it really sensitive. And too much cortisol over time can shrink it a bit. And then the effect of that is that it slows the creation of new neurons and it weakens the connections your brain needs to form and recall memories, giving that fogginess, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that shrinking's real. So research has shown that people with chronically high cortisol levels often have a smaller hippocampus in the brain. So that makes them perform worse on memory tasks often, and they might experience faster cognitive decline. It's so tricky though, because the hippocampus also plays a role in helping to regulate stress. So when it's negatively impacted, it can't keep cortisol in check. This creates a chain where stress just keeps piling on.
Which is yet another vicious cycle, I feel, going on in the brain. It seems to be happening a lot. So what about hormones then? How does that affect us?
Yeah, so hormones play really important roles in cognitive function. So estrogen in particular, this acts as a neuroprotective hormone in the brain. So it's supporting memory, it's enhancing blood flow, and it's protecting cells from damage.
And during perimenopause and menopause, when the estrogen levels drop, many women report experiencing brain fog for the first time. And studies have documented measurable cognitive changes during these, perimenopause and menopause, including difficulties with learning, verbal memory and concentration.
So it's not imagined then, there are genuine physiological changes happening.
Absolutely, and the brain fog tends to be more pronounced during perimenopause when the hormonal fluctuations are at their greatest. Research shows, and the women will love to hear this, women, they're not just being emotional or stressed, their brains are actually responding to dramatic shifts in a hormone that's been protecting and supporting their cognitive function for decades.
Okay, so good news in some respects.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned estrogen. What other hormones do we need to think about, guys?
So thyroid hormones, they're crucial. So these regulate the metabolic rate of every cell in your body. And when thyroid hormone levels are low, this is known as hyperthyroidism, brain cell essentially operate in slow motion.
So foggy thinking then is a direct result of a slowed metabolism?
Precisely. Studies have shown that nearly 80% of people with hypothyroidism report frequent brain fog symptoms. It's like the classic description is sluggish thinking, poor memory, difficulty concentrating, exactly what you'd expect when your brain's metabolism slows down.
Yeah, so back to big factors, dehydration is really important. It's something that people often overlook because your brain's over 70% water. So even mild dehydration, like losing just 1 or 2% of body water, can impair cognitive function, attention, short-term memory.
Which again is no surprise, is it? After we learned that in the hydration episode.
We did indeed. Yeah, when you're dehydrated, your blood volume decreases, which means you have reduced oxygen and nutrient delivery to your brain cells. Your electrolyte imbalances disrupt electrical signaling between neurons, and dehydration triggers stress hormones, which further impairs cognition.
Yeah, and brain scans of dehydrated individuals show they have to work much harder to achieve the same cognitive results as those people who are perfectly hydrated. But fortunately, mild dehydration effects reverse quickly as soon as you rehydrate.
Very good. And you can check out, quick plug, the hydration episode. It's a good one to check out if you've not heard it already.
Yeah.
So what about then the gut connection? I've heard a lot about this recently.
Now, this is fascinating because the brain and the gut communicate bidirectionally. That means they communicate both ways through what's called the gut-brain axis. And this involves neural pathways, clever immune signaling, and neurotransmitter production. Up to 95% of serotonin, that's the feel-good hormone that's crucial for mood and cognition, is actually produced in your digestive system, not your brain.
Yeah, and the connection's rightly getting a lot of research focus at the moment. So studies have shown that patients with irritable bowel syndrome or IBS often experience brain fog. And some of the treatments for IBS that help rebalance gut microbiome can reduce inflammatory responses, but also improve cognitive symptoms as well.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And so I guess then when people say trust your gut, there's something to that, right? Like we're relying on a healthy gut to help us reduce brain fog, which is, I guess it's either brilliant or it's slightly terrifying maybe, or I don't know.
Or possibly humbling.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
But, nutritional deficiencies are unsurprisingly really important, but often they're overlooked. Vitamin B12 is really important. It's essential for the nerve health, for production of your red blood cells that carry oxygen to the brain.
Yeah, iron too. So when iron levels are low, less oxygen reaches the brain, as you say, it leaves you a bit sluggish mentally. And don't get me started on vitamin D deficiency or omega-3 deficiency, because we'll be here all day.
Yeah, your favourite topic, right? Favourite topic. So it's fair to say, though, that the nutrient deficiency has a huge impact. So what can people actually do about brain fog, apart from taking more vitamins?
Okay, so start with the fundamentals. Sleep, like we've mentioned, is non-negotiable. Most adults need 7 to 9 hours. Your brain, it needs that time to go into maintenance mode, to clear waste, to consolidate your memories, and to just restore all the chemical levels ready for the next day.
Yeah, and hydration is key. So keep water available throughout the day. If your urine's dark yellow, you need more fluids. For nutrition, do focus on those brain healthy foods. So omega-3 fatty acids, B vitamins, vitamin D3, natural antioxidants, and just try to limit those processed foods that could trigger inflammation.
Okay, that's helpful. Now, what about stress management then?
Critical, but we all know it's a challenging thing to manage. So chronic stress, it does physically damage your hippocampus. And it's about finding out what works for you, whether that's mindfulness, meditation, breathing exercises, taking time out to walk outside in nature. The goal is to break that cortisol cycle before it becomes chronic.
And being Captain Obvious, as always, physical exercise, it helps enormously.
It's there.
So we know physical activity increases cerebral blood flow. That's the blood flow in the brain, but it supports that mitochondrial function, those little power stations that I mentioned earlier in all of our skin cells. But exercise helps to reduce inflammation. It regulates stress hormones as well. So it's so important, but does make measurable differences.
Mm.
Yeah, exercise is one of those things that I always feel better after it. I never feel better before it, but I always feel better after it. So what about then hormone-related brain fog?
So if brain fog coincides with being a certain age of perimenopause or menopause, it's worth talking to your doctor because there are hormone therapies that can help. But, it's an individual decision. And understanding that the cognitive changes, they're real and biological. You're not imagining them. That is actually can be quite validating.
Yeah, and for thyroid-related brain fog, thyroid hormone replacement is essential. You must talk to your doctor about that.
Yeah. It's great. When should we? It's a big question, is it? When should we actually then seek medical help? You've both mentioned it.
So I guess when you've done those lifestyle changes and they're not enough, or your brain fog is persistent or severe, it could signal thyroid dysfunction, hormone imbalance, or autoimmune conditions that actually need, specialized treatment.
Yeah, I think the key is that regular brain fog is an indicator that something isn't quite right and needs attention. So whether that's sleep or stress or hydration, nutrition, as you mentioned, or there could be an underlying condition that needs medical attention. So do keep an eye on it. It is important.
Yeah. What strikes me, I guess, listening to you guys talk about this is how everything is connected. And we've talked about this before on the show, isn't it? So poor sleep, stress, gut health, hormones, they're all sort of interlinked, right?
Exactly. Sleep is always the answer.
And earlier when you said sleep 7 to 9 hours, in my head I heard sleep 79 hours. I'm like, that's a good target right there.
Yeah, even 7 to 9 hours is a good target. But we all know that poor sleep increases stress or your ability to handle things. Chronic stress then damages gut health. And then when your gut health is damaged, that causes inflammation. Then the inflammation affects sleep. And the hormonal changes just amplify all of it. Everything is interconnected.
I mean, it really is interconnected, and it explains why brain fog appears across so many conditions. So long COVID, as we discussed, it could be chronic fatigue syndrome, menopause, thyroid disorders, and autoimmune diseases. It's just so widespread.
Yeah. So I guess brain fog then is a bit like, the warning light you get on the dashboard in the car. It's like your brain's warning light going off.
Yeah, precisely. But the encouraging news is that for most people, it's treatable. It's not permanent cognitive decline. It's a reversible state that improves when you address the underlying causes.
Wonderful. So, let's recap. Why do we get brain fog?
So we get brain fog because our brain is an extraordinarily demanding organ requiring optimal conditions to function. And when those conditions are met, whether it's through inadequate sleep, chronic stress, inflammation, hormonal shifts, nutritional deficiencies, or just reduced blood flow, cognitive performance suffers in measurable and noticeable ways.
Fair enough. So unlike my laptop then, when it's frozen, I can't just, force restart it and quit it. I actually have to maintain the system properly.
Exactly. Brain fog's telling you that something needs attention. But your brain is incredibly resilient. And so if you address the underlying cause, give it the support, a bit of love and care, your cognitive function typically does improve.
Which is good news, right? So that's why we experience brain fog and why it's worth taking brain fog seriously rather than just pushing through it and hoping it goes away.
So that's it for this week. If this has changed how you think about those foggy moments, hit that subscribe button. We're unpacking the science behind everyday questions each week. Tell us in the comments what you'd like us to cover. Thanks for geeking out with us. But for now, that's it from me.
That's it from me.
And that's it from me.
Bye for now.